The story of Adam, Iblis. Then we spoke about, in our last session, we spoke about Habil and Qabil and what happened between them. And and then we spoke about, Adam alayhi salam, his death. And now we're going to continue after that point. Now, Adam alayhi salam, he lost one of his sons. Who was the son that was killed? Huh? Was it Habil or Qabil? It was Habil that was killed by Qabil, right? So Qabil kills Habil, and now Adam alayhi salam is left without one of his sons. Now, many of the scholars, they mentioned that there are some, more children that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave Adam alayhi salam after that, more children. Like I said, we don't have any authentic narration from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling us about how many children he had after that point. But But after that, the scholars mentioned that there was a son that Adam alayhi salam had after that named Sheath. Okay, Sheath. And how do they say Sheath in English? Seth, right? Seth. So, if you think about it, Seth, you probably heard that name before, right? It's Sheath, right? And that's the name of a prophet, okay? So, now Sheath alayhi salam, we don't really have much information about him. Authentic information. We don't really have anything about him. All we have is Israeliyat. We have narrations from the people of the book. And we already spoke about our stance when it comes to these narrations. But, he was one of the sons of Adam alayhi salam, and he was the only prophet to come up to this point. So Sheath was a prophet, and he was the only prophet that we know of from the sons of Adam alayhi salam. Now Sheath alayhi salam, like I said, we don't really have much information about him. We only have one hadith about him. Okay, we have one hadith about him, and that hadith is in the Sahih of Ibn Hibban. Ibn Hibban, he considered this narration that we're going to mention, he considered it sahih. But amongst the muhaddithun, Ibn Hibban, you probably never really heard of his name. He is a famous muhaddith. A lot of scholars mentioned that he was mutasahil. He was someone that was, he wasn't like very strict when it comes to authenticating reports. And he was a great scholar. Don't get me wrong, he was a great scholar. But he mentioned this narration. It's a long narration, but I'm just going to mention a part of it. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said in this narration that Allah sent, in terms of the total amount of books, that Allah Azza wa Jalla sent mi'atu kitabin wa arba'atu kutubin. That Allah has sent 100 scriptures, 100 books. And then the Prophet ﷺ goes on to say in this narration, wa arba'atu kutubin unzila ala Sheath khamsuna sahifa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down, Allah Azza wa Jalla sent down to him 4 books. 4 books of revelation, and they were in 50 scrolls, right? 4 books and 50 scrolls that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. Now this narration right here is not an authentic narration. You have many, scholars of hadith who say that this hadith is da'if. It's an inauthentic narration. And Allahu A'lam, I don't know about any other narration that mentions this, but all of the scholars that talk about Sheath alayhi salam, they always mention this one and they don't mention anything else. Allahu A'lam, maybe there's some other narration out there. Allah knows best. But as far as my knowledge and what the scholars have mentioned, we don't know of any authentic narration about Sheath alayhi salam. So we say that Allahu A'lam, right? It's from the tales, the narrations of Bani Israel. We don't accept it 100%, nor do we reject it 100%. Right? And it's permissible to narrate these things, right? So Sheath alayhi salam, inshallah, he was a prophet, and and he was the one who was in charge of the people after Adam alayhi salam passed away. Adam alayhi salam appointed him, and he was there guiding the people. You can imagine being a prophet, teaching the people, right? Guiding the people, receiving revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a prophet. Okay, so Sheath alayhi salam was calling the people towards Islam, and then after him, generation after generation, then humanity continued to expand and continued to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and more human beings started to populate the earth, right? And you can imagine how small the population was at that time, right? We're talking just like a small village. That's basically every human being on earth. It's just in that small town, small area. And then, as I said, humanity continued to progress, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Idris. Okay, Allah Azza wa Jalla sent Idris alayhi salam. Now Idris, Allah does mention Idris in the Quran. Sheath is not mentioned anywhere in the Quran or Sunnah, authentic Sunnah, right? But Idris alayhi salam is mentioned in the Quran as well. Allah talks about him in many different places. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only mentions his name in the majority of places that he mentions him, right? For example, Allah refers to him in Surah Al-Anbiya and many different places, right? But there's only one place where Allah gives us any details about him. Right? There's only one place in the Quran where Allah gives us any details about him. And it's very, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't go into any real detail. Allah just mentions certain general things about him, and that's it. Okay, and the same goes for Idris alayhi salam. Just like Sheath, we only have one inauthentic narration. We don't really have much narration talking about his life. Now Idris alayhi salam, Ibn Kathir mentions that how Idris alayhi salam is the same prophet referred to as Khanukh by the Jews and the Christians, right? Enoch. You probably heard of the Christians referring to a prophet named Enoch, right? And they have many things referring to a prophet named Enoch, right? And they have many tales that they talk about Enoch. And like I said, we don't really have much authentic things about him. So Ibn Kathir mentions that how he's the same prophet that the Jews and Christians refer to as Enoch. And some of the things that we know about him, Ibn Ishaq, rahimahullah, one of the scholars of history, one of the historians, early historians, he says that how Idris was the first person to write with the pen. He was the first person to write with the pen. Right? So before that, nobody really had this technology, this ability to write with pens. It was Idris alayhi salam was the first one that Allah taught him how to do that. And in the Quran, the first verses that were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq." That read in the name of your Lord who created. خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ. He created the human being from one small clot. اقرأ وربك الأكرم. Read, and your Lord is the most generous. الذي علم بالقلم. The one who taught by the pen. Right, who taught human beings to learn and to teach and to record our information using the pen. And the first of those who ever did this was Idris alayhi salam, very early on in human history. So this ability to write things down and to record things, Idris alayhi salam was the first one to do that. Now, many scholars like Ibn Kathir, he mentions that how there's a hadith that perhaps this hadith is referring to Idris. Okay, and that hadith it's a hadith in Sahih Muslim. It's narrated by Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam radiallahu anhu. He went to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he complained about something. Right, he complained about something. He says that minna rijalun yakhutun. He said, "O Messenger of Allah, there are some men among us and they write things." And what he means by that is that they would write things and then they would do like fortune telling and things like that. So he said that how there's people that would write these types of superstitious things. Okay. So the Prophet ﷺ then says to him that كَانَ نَبِيٌّ مِّنَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ يَخُطُّ. That there was a prophet from among the prophets who used to write. There was a prophet among all of the prophets. There was once a prophet, he used to write. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he says that فَمَنْ وَافَقَ خَطَّهُ فَذَاكَ. And so whoever agrees with the way that he used to write things, then that's okay. Right? Then that is okay. Then that is what they should do. So in other words, there was a prophet, he used to write things. Of course, the Prophet is not referring to doing superstitious things, right? He's talking about writing things. And many scholars like Ibn Kathir, they say that perhaps this is referring to Idris. Did the Prophet actually say Idris is the person that he's talking about? No. But perhaps, maybe that's the prophet that he's talking about. Okay? So, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I mentioned, there's only one place where Allah gives us any real detail about Idris. And that is in Surah Maryam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَذْكُرُ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِدْرِيسِ. That remember Idris, remember the record or the writing of Idris. Okay? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَذْكُرُ فِي الْكِتَابِ إِدْرِيسِ. Remember Idris, إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. That he was a Siddiq, he was somebody who was truthful. This is one of the characteristics of all of the prophets. They were all truthful, immensely truthful and loyal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, إِنَّهُ كَانَ صِدِّيقًا نَبِيًّا. He was also a prophet. And then Allah mentions, وَرَفَعْنَاهُ مَكَانًا عَلِيًّا. And we raised him to a high place. Right? We raised him to a high place. This is all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about Idris. Right? We don't really know much besides that from the Quran. Okay? So far we know that he's a prophet, we know he was truthful, and we know that Allah Azza wa Jalla raised him to a high place. Now what does that mean? What does that mean that Allah raised him to a high place? Raise your hand. What do you guys think that means? Is it an actual place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him to? Is it just status? What is it? Anyone? Yes? Huh? Okay, good, excellent, right? That's one opinion of the scholars, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him to a level where he was praiseworthy. So, it may not refer to something that's like an actual place, but it means like a position that's praiseworthy. Excellent, what else? Anything else? Where could this high place possibly be? Anyone? Huh? In Jannah? Of course he will be going to Jannah. All the prophets are going to be in Jannah. No prophet will be in Jahannam. Yes? Huh? Where is the high place in the dunya? Okay, excellent. That's a very beautiful point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his mention eternal in the Quran. So that until Yawm al-Qiyamah, the people will be reading about Idris alayhi salam. Right? That's, wallahi, that's a high place. Right? But there is also a place, like an actual place, where it could, in the Sama. Which one though? In the fourth one. Excellent, right? MashaAllah, somebody did the homework. Alhamdulillah. That's good, right? And we probably heard about this before as well. But when the Prophet ﷺ, when in the night journey, hadith is in Bukhari and Muslim, when he went upon a night journey, remember he saw different prophets in different samawat, in different heavens. Now, in the heavens where he saw the prophets, is that Jannah? That's not Jannah. A lot of people, they get this confused. It's samawat. It's levels of skies, of heavens. That's why we refer to it as heavens. But it's not paradise as Jannah. It's not the garden. It's not levels of the garden. And that's why there are 7 samawat, but how many levels of Jannah are there? 100, right? There's a hadith, authentic hadith. Inna fil jannati mi'ata daraja. In Jannah there are 100 levels. Very clear. So when people say, oh, 7th heaven, I want to go to the 7th heaven, the highest level of Jannah, that's wrong. Allahu A'lam, where they got that from, right? May Allah protect us from ignorance, right? I mean, but that's a different heaven they're talking about, right? That's a 7th sama. That's not Jannah, okay? So the Prophet saw different prophets in different levels of the samawat. And on the 4th one, the Prophet ﷺ told us how he met Idris in the 4th one. Now, how did Idris get there? You're going to find many different opinions. Ibn Kathir mentions like a bunch of opinions, and then he mentions how they're all from Israeliyat. They're all from narrations of the Jews and the Christians. You find that some of these narrations mention that how one angel took him up there, and then his soul was taken up there, so he died up there, right? Allah knows best. It's like I said, you're going to read some different stuff in the history books, right? But like I said, nothing is really clear-cut authentic, right? And the most authentic opinion that many scholars mention is that the meaning that Allah raised him in a high status is when the Prophet met him in Al-Isra wal Mi'raj. Now, how did the Prophet meet him? Was he actually like there? Because, is Idris alayhi salam still alive there? You find that some of these narrations, some of these Israeliyat mention that how the same way that Eesa alayhi salam, the same way that Eesa alayhi salam was not killed and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him up in the heavens, the same way Idris alayhi salam is up there as well. Allah knows best. Allah knows best, what exactly happened to Idris, Enoch alayhi salam. Yes, question? Oh, no, no question. All right, so Allahu A'lam, perhaps the meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him up, the most authentic opinions, is that number one, it means in status. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him in status and mention and virtue, and Allah also raised him up there in the 4th heaven in a way that is befitting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised him up there. Now, so as I said, we don't really know too much about Idris alayhi salam. This is pretty much all we really know about him. So you find that there's some prophets know a ton about their lives, and then there's some prophets all we know is their name, right? We don't really know much about that besides their name. But does that detract from their virtue and from their status? No, absolutely not. Right? Perhaps you know more about cartoon characters and celebrities than some of the prophets and some of the Sahaba. But that doesn't mean that these people that you know about are better. Right? And the same goes for the amount that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about them. Sometimes it's not a lot, but that does not detract from their status. Okay? And how many prophets were there in total? There's one narration in the Musnad of Ahmad that mentions the amount of prophets. How many? 124,000. Right, 124,000. Next one, right? There's a narration that mentions, and there's some dispute in terms of its authenticity. Inshallah ta'ala, it's authentic hadith. The Prophet says that how Allah sent 124,000 prophets. How many prophets are mentioned in the Quran? Generally speaking, 25 prophets. So out of 124,000 prophets, we only have 25. Think about that. So the vast majority of prophets, we have no idea who they were, right? But yet they're the best of us. Think about that. So anytime you don't have a lot of friends, anytime you're not very popular, don't think that means that you're any less, right? Just because you're not giving the khutbah, you're not giving the class, nobody really knows about you, doesn't mean that your status is low. Perhaps you're the most beloved in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about that, right? Because you have many scholars today that are very popular, but we don't even know about some of the prophets. They definitely deserve to be known more than them, right? So, but at the same time, that like your fame and popularity doesn't mean much, right? It's about the akhlaq, it's about your character, it's about what's in the heart, it's about your iman, your taqwa. That's what's most important. Yeah.
You think Ram
Perhaps Allahu A'lam, perhaps these were prophets that came to them from before, and then their message got adult. If they could do that to Isa alayhi salam, if they could do that to Isa alayhi salam, what about others? Perhaps Allah knows best. Perhaps these people that they refer to as, this one and that one, these saints, all, thousands, of years ago, perhaps they were prophets. Allah knows best. Allah mentions that how He sent in every nation a prophet. Every nation. So wherever they were human beings, wherever they were villages and civilization, Allah sent prophets to those people. In the farthest islands, in the farthest countries, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets to them. So, we're talking about Europe, Asia, North America, South America, wherever there were human beings in the past, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets to them. Now, could it have been, like for example, could it have been that there's any prophets after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No. Whatever prophets came to these societies before, then they had to be before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And also there's a hadith where the Prophet, where it's narrated, where it's in Sahih Muslim that mentions that there's no prophet between Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Isa alayhi salam. How many years was between Muhammad between Isa alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There's one narration, Salman al-Farisi, he says that how between them is 600 sana, is 600 years. 600 years between Isa alayhi salam and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Okay? So within a period of 600 years, there was no prophet that ever came between that period. Alright? So, but before that, for thousands of years, human beings have been around for so long. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets all over the place. Now, so moving on, after that, what prophet came after Idris alayhi salam? We know that Nuh alayhi salam came. Were there other prophets? Allah knows best. Now when Nuh alayhi salam came, this was the period where shirk first started to appear among mankind. Everybody before that used to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Nobody really committed shirk before that. Nobody worshipped idols before this point. Right? Everybody was worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even though Qabil committed that sin, he committed murder, there was still no shirk. So there was murder, there were other sins, but there was no shirk yet. So for generations, the people were just worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of them were misguided, some of them, followed their desires, but nobody, came to the point where they committed shirk. Iblis was not successful up until this point. So we're talking about generations after generations until Nuh alayhi salam came. This is way after Adam alayhi salam. Now there's a narration that tells us when Nuh alayhi salam came in terms of when Adam alayhi salam died. Right? Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, there's an authentic narration where he says that between Adam alayhi salam and between Nuh alayhi salam is a period of 10 qurun, of 10 generations or 10 centuries. Now the word qarn can either mean a century or it can mean generations as well. So Allahu A'lam what the exact amount of years are. You have some scholars like Al-Tabari who mentions that it was 126 years between Adam alayhi salam and Nuh alayhi salam. Allah knows best. Right? We don't really have anything that's really clear cut to be able to pinpoint the amount of years. But Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said that it's 10 generations. Allah knows best. So 10 generations, we're talking about people living and dying, father and son, mother and daughter, for 10 generations. Right? Everybody was just worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Then shirk started. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, in the same narration, he said that how they were all upon Islam. They were all Muslims. Nobody left Islam at this point. Now when Nuh alayhi salam, when he came, Nuh alayhi salam is the first messenger. Nuh alayhi salam is the first messenger that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever sent to earth. Now the question is what do we mean that Nuh alayhi salam is the first Rasul, the first messenger? What about Adam alayhi salam? We have a hadith where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that how Adam alayhi salam was a Nabi, he was a prophet. So we know that Adam alayhi salam was a prophet. But there's a narration, and it's a long narration. It's a hadith in Bukhari and Muslim. It's the long hadith of shafa'ah, of intercession. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, everybody will be going to the prophets and they're going to be asking the prophets for help. In other words, to call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to start the judgment. When the people are just standing up, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not judge the people right away. So there's a long hadith. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that how the people will go to Adam alayhi salam. Adam alayhi salam will remember the sin that he committed. He will say, go to this one, go to that one, go to this one, and go to that one. So the people are going to go from Adam alayhi salam to Nuh, then they're going to go to Ibrahim, to Musa, to Eesa, and then to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now when they come to Nuh alayhi salam, they will say something interesting to him. They will say, Ya Nuh. They will say, Oh Nuh, Anta awwal al-rusuli ila ahli al-ard. They will say, you are the first of the messengers, the first of the Rasul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to earth. Right, so it's very clear. Nuh alayhi salam was the first Rasul, the first messenger. Right, now the question is, what's the difference between a Nabi and a Rasul? If Adam alayhi salam, Sheeth and Idris, they were Anbiya, they were prophets, but not messengers, what makes Nuh alayhi salam a messenger? How is he different then? Anyone?
The messenger receive wahi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the messenger pick up from the prophets.
So you're saying that a messenger receives wahi?
No, I'm saying the prophet receive wahi.
Okay, so the prophets receive wahi and the messengers don't.
The messenger, they pick up from the prophets.
They just pick up from the prophets. Okay.
I mean, that's how I understand it.
Allahu alam. I don't think I've ever seen that opinion among the scholars. Yes, over here.
The messengers they come with a new sharia.
Okay, excellent, right? The messengers, they come with a new sharia. What about the prophets?
Huh?
What about the prophets?
I don't know. They don't.
Okay, question. Can someone be a Rasul and a Nabi at the same time?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Muhammad,
we have our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? We say that he's a Nabi, he's a prophet, and we also say Rasulullah, right? The messenger of Allah. So a person can be a prophet and a messenger at the same time. So it may be a bit problematic if you say that a Rasul doesn't get revelation, but a prophet does, right? That may be a bit problematic, especially if you have someone being a Rasul and a Nabi at the same time. I'm going to give you a rule that the scholars mentioned. Every single Rasul is a prophet, but not every prophet is a Rasul, right? You have Adam alayhi salam, Idris, Sheeth, they were Anbiya, they were prophets, but they were not Rasul. They were not messengers. But Nuh alayhi salam, he was a prophet as well, and he was a messenger at the same time. So everyone that Allah describes as everyone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes as a Rasul, then they're also Nabi as well. What are some other differences? That's one difference that we can appreciate, right? That a Rasul is someone who gets new sharia, new laws, and the Anbiya, they get revelation as well. They all get revelation, because a Nabi is someone who receives news or prophecies or information, right? So a Nabi is someone who's inspired, so that's very clear, right? Anbiya and Rasul, all of them get revelation. But a Rasul is someone who gets new sharia, new laws. Right, every messenger came with new laws for their people, and the Anbiya, they followed those laws of the Rasul before them. Right, that's one difference that the scholars mentioned, and there's not really a big problem with that opinion. Right, so we can appreciate that. We can say that perhaps that's a difference. What else? What else can we add? Huh? Oh, all right, a book. Right, okay, good, right, that, that's another difference perhaps, that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them books, and the Anbiya, perhaps Allah didn't give them books, but they were going off of the revelation of those previous prophets, right, the sharia, right, of those previous prophets that came in the form of a book, right. What else? Yeah.
The messenger remove all the old sharia, and he brings the new revolution, the new law.
Okay, all right, that's similar to what some of the brothers have mentioned, right? That the Rasul, he's someone who kind of brings a new sharia, completely new sharia. That might be a bit problematic, right? Because Eesa alayhi salam was a Rasul, and he came to to Bani Israel. And like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in many places that how Eesa alayhi salam came to confirm what the Torah brought. Right, he didn't come to change it, and he also brought the Injil, and he came to change certain rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made upon the Israelites. And even the Christians say this as well. In the New Testament, there's a verse in there where Jesus says that how he has not come to change the law, he has come to confirm the law. So even in their own scriptures, it's mentioned there that Jesus only came to confirm the law. Yeah, what else?
Does the Rasul, if I'm not mistaken, do they go to a new ummah? Do
Okay,
they have
good.
their own ummah?
All right, they go to a new ummah. like I said, that may be a bit problematic because Isa alayhi salam came to Bani Israel. Right? Isa alayhi salam came to Bani Israel. That was his ummah. That was the ummah of all of the Israelite prophets. Right? Now, I think that the best opinion, and Allah knows best, is the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah and some other scholars who hold this view as well. They say that how a Rasul is someone who comes to people that disbelieve in him. And a prophet, a Nabi, comes to people that agree, generally speaking, agree with their message. Right? So, when Isa alayhi salam came, kufr was widespread among the Israelites. Right? And of course, that only increased when he came. They all rejected him except for the Hawariyun, except for the disciples that he had. And also, listen, I'm going to apologize for my voice. I've just been sick the past couple of days. Alhamdulillah, we ask Allah for his shifa. Ameen. Ameen. So I think that this is, the best view because, it kind of, you can reconcile all of the reports, all of the ayat, all of, the Quran and Sunnah. It's very consistent looking at it in this particular way. That a Rasul is someone who came to disbelieving people, like Nuh alayhi salam. That was the first time shirk ever appeared in human history. And Nuh alayhi salam was the first messenger. Think, why? Why was he the first Rasul? Why wasn't there a Rasul before? It's because this is the first time where people actually disbelieved. So a Rasul is someone who is sent to people that disbelieve in that messenger, right? Whereas a Nabi, they come and they following the law of the Rasul, of the messengers, and they also come to people that generally agree with their message so that they can keep guiding them. Now there's another opinion that some scholars mention, and this is very problematic. This is a very problematic view, and that is that a Rasul is someone who has been given revelation and they've been commanded to convey it to the people. That's what a Rasul is. And a Nabi is someone who's been given revelation and he has not been commanded to convey it to the people. Think about that. That's very strange because if we who are not prophets, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً, convey from me even if it's one verse. If that's our obligation, then what about the prophets? If someone is a Nabi, it's not an obligation for them to convey the wahi that they got. Very problematic view, right? So that's why, and Allah knows best. The best view is the view that states that how a Rasul is someone who comes to people that disbelieve in him. And a Nabi comes to people that generally agree with him. That's why Adam alayhi salam was a prophet. Nobody disbelieved in him. Right? Idris and Sheeth, they were prophets. Okay, so as I mentioned, that this was the first time that shirk appeared among mankind. Now question, what is shirk? What is shirk? What is that? Yeah. Associating partners with Allah. Now I want somebody to give me a definition of shirk. What does it mean to associate partners with Allah? Somebody give me a definition for us to understand what shirk is. Yeah. Okay, that's an example, and you could say that is shirk because it is shirk, right? Saying, for example, saying that there's a trinity, right? There's a trinity, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly has partners. Allah is 3 in 1, right? Buy one, get 2 free. No, absolutely not. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is one, right? That's a perfect example of shirk of our Islamic concept of polytheism, right? Now listen, you're going to find shirk being translated as polytheism, where you're worshiping multiple gods, or you have these gods that you're worshiping. But there's many examples of shirk that may not involve idols, right? Yes.
Giving all the rights of Allah to something else.
Giving all of the rights?
Oh yes, of Allah.
Okay, what if someone only wants to give one of the rights?
Like say to specify something that we do to Allah, but they do it to something else.
Okay, excellent. That's a good point. Now that's a very good one, right? But there's still some, like certain things could be added to that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, excellent. That's a very good point as well. All shirk has this, right? To put your trust and reliance on something other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the question is, what if I depend on my my friend to do something for me? And depending on him besides Allah, would that be considered shirk? It's very problematic, to only look at it from that angle, right? If I depend on somebody, I'm like, yo, I need you to pick this up for me from the store. I'm depending on you, right? Huh? Okay, just repeat what you just said.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a doctor, omnipotent doctor, right? He cure everything. So, but he just guide the surgeon to give you operation, to guide you towards operation. Similarly, if let's say I'm in trouble, I need some cash or something. I say, man, Brother Zach, I need some cash. You say, okay, give me your code or whatever. You transfer some money to you. I go to the transfer machine and say, I'm punching whatever code is it. Get the money for me to. So I thank the machine. I have to thank you because you understand what I'm saying?
Okay, I understand. Okay, so because it's by qadr, because it's established by qadr, there's nothing wrong with depending on it. But at the same time, you have to realize that that thing does not do what it does except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's permission, right? So I totally understand what you're saying. Listen, the best definition of shirk, yes.
I think it's giving one or more of the attributes of Allah, or like one or more of the attributes of Allah, and ascribing it to one of Allah's creations.
Excellent. That's the answer. This is the best, most comprehensive definition of shirk, and that is to give one of the specific qualities of Allah to other than Him. So an example of this: if someone believes that someone else can hear everything, are they calling upon Him? They're not calling upon Him. Are they praying to Him? They're not praying to Him. So shirk is not only in praying to somebody, but how is this shirk? How is this associating partners with Allah? Is that you're mentioning something that only Allah has, and then you're saying that He has that thing as well. If you believe someone knows the future, only Allah knows the future. Period. Nobody else besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know the future except if Allah gives them a prophecy, for example, right? But like for example, we know that a Dajjal is going to come in these things, right? But we don't know those things from ourselves. We know those things through revelation, right? So those are things that are going to happen in the future. If you believe that someone knows something from the future without revelation, then you are giving that person a specific quality of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that nobody else has besides Allah. Only Allah should be worshipped. So if you worship someone else, you're giving that person a specific quality of Allah. Specific quality means a quality that only Allah should have. If you believe someone else was never born, someone will never die, that's shirk as well. Even though you're not calling upon the person. Is everybody clear on this? So shirk, by this definition, it covers worshipping that person, and it also covers saying and believing things about them that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in terms of His qualities. Very clear. So the minute you say that, this guy can hear, like, some people, what they do, they call upon saints. And they call upon people that are dead in like other continents, and they're buried there. They say, oh, Abdul Qadir Jilani. Oh, this one, oh, that one. Oh, this sheikh and that sheikh. Oh, Maulana. Oh, Wali of Allah. Oh, people call upon, people, and they do these things. If you believe, there's no Skype, there's no, no FaceTime, no WhatsApp, no phone. You're not talking to them, but you're in your room by yourself and there's candles lit around. Crazy stuff. People be doing this stuff. Candles lit around, and he's calling upon Ya Abdul Qadir Jilani, Ya this, Ya that, whatever. No. A'udhu billah. May Allah protect us, right? And they call upon these things, right? And if you believe that person is hearing you, then you've committed shirk automatically. Even if you didn't make dua. Just by you believing that is enough to be shirk, right? So shirk. So now, how did Nuh alayhi salam? How did his people? How did they commit shirk? Right now, Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he tells us. There's a narration in Bukhari where, actually, first of all, when Nuh alayhi salam came to his people, the people of Nuh alayhi salam, when Nuh alayhi salam is telling them to worship Allah Azza wa Jal, to worship Him alone, the people, they said to each other, وَقَالُوا لَا تَذَرُنَّ آلِهَتَكُمْ. The people said to each other that don't leave off your gods. Don't listen to Nuh alayhi salam. Don't leave off your gods. وَلَا تَذَرُنَّ وَدًّا وَلَا سُوَاعًا وَلَا يَغُوثَ وَيَعُوقَ وَنَسْرًا. Allah mentions that how they said to each other, do not leave Wad, do not leave Suwa', do not leave Yaghuth, do not leave Ya'uq, and do not leave Nasr. These 5 names. So when Allah mentions these 5 names in Surah Nuh, there's a whole chapter of the Quran called Surah Nuh. Chapter 71, right? When you read Surah Nuh and you read that the people said to each other, don't leave these 5 names. Who are these 5 names? Right? Who are these 5 things? These like, are they idols? Are they people? Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu is a very beautiful narration. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he tells us that هذه أسماء رجال صالحين من قوم نوح. That these are the names of righteous people from the people of Nuh alayhi salam. Right? So these 5 people, right? These 5 people, Wad, Suwa', Yaghuth, Ya'uq, and Nasr, these 5 people, they were righteous people. They were upon Tawheed. They worship Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So, so Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he tells us that how these were the names of 5 righteous people. And then he tells us, فَلَمَّا هَلَكُوا, when they died, أَوْحَ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِمْ, Shaitan came to these people and told them that you want to remember these righteous people? Right? Make statues of them. Make statues of them. So that's what the people did. They made statues of them, and they would remember these statues. They would go to these statues, and they would, remember the righteousness of these men. Think about their lives, right? So they would go around these statues, and then Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he tells us that after they died, after this generation of people died, that's when the knowledge was forgotten. They forgot about who these people really were. And that's when extremism started to come in their midst. And that's when they started to actually worship these men. Right? And that's how, that's exactly how saint worship started for the Christians as well. Right? You know that the Christians, not all Christians, but the Catholics specifically, they call upon these saints. What are some of these saints that they call upon? Saint Patrick. Patrick. Who else? Yeah. Peter, Saint Peter, right? They call upon Saint Peter. Who else? They call upon Maryam alayhi salam. Right? They call upon her and they seek things from her as well. The mother of Jesus, yeah. Okay, excellent. Of course they call upon Eesa alayhi salam. Who else? What are some of these different saints? Huh? Saint John, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Personally, I have never heard, any Catholic call upon these, at least according to what I remember. I don't remember them, like any specific name, right? But it's well known. So, Saint Valentine, whatever, whatever other saints that they got, right? But the point is that this was, this is something that's widespread today, even among that sect of Christianity, and the Muslims do it as well. The Muslims follow the same, some of the Muslims follow the same thing, and they're calling upon this saint and that saint, right? So it's very clear in Islam, you don't call upon anybody in terms of dua except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's it. So that's how their shirk started. So they started. They started, worshiping these righteous men, worshiping these statues as if it's idols. And the benefit of this is that you see the game plan of Shaitan. Shaitan, he's gonna be here for a long time. And Shaitan, sometimes he doesn't plan for you, but he plans for your kids. Right? He plans for your kids. He's gonna plan for your grandkids. He's gonna plan generations down the line. Little things he's gonna make you do. Oh, introduce his family tradition and how the family does his tradition. Then the next, generation comes down the line. Shaitan makes them manipulate it in some way, adulterate it in some way. And then after a while, the people are now, left Islam. They're committing shirk now, right? They've, calling upon others besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Iblis has a lot of patience on his hands, right? And he has a lot of time too. This is his job. This is his mission to mislead as much people as he can. So think about this. Shaitan sometimes is not going to come to you directly and say, commit kufr, commit shirk, right? Disbelieve in Allah, commit zina. No, he's going to get you little by little, right? For zina, for example, it's going to be, your friend, on Facebook, you got the, how it recommends you friends? That was this girl from high school or this girl from middle school, whatever the case is. And then it says, it's a friend recommendation. So you add her as a friend, be like, there's nothing wrong with this. It's not like I'm committing zina, I'm just saying hi. Perhaps it's a means of da'wah. Sometimes that's the excuse, and Shaitan is going to come and he's going to say, you know what, bro? Give him da'wah, or give her da'wah, right? She's going to become Islam. She's going to see the reminders on your Facebook page, right? And before you know it, you guys are chatting. The night is going by. Fajr, you're missing Fajr. You have such a good time. And then you know what? Let me invite her over to the Masjid. She comes over to the Masjid. She's in the sitter section, Monday Night Boost, right? The iftar. And then one thing leads to another, then you have a coffee, you give her Quran, your hands touch. And little by little, then you know what? You've now committed that sin. Right? You've now committed zina. Shaitan, he has brought down people that have more knowledge than us. People that worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than us. Remember that. So always seek refuge with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from Shaitan. That's why Ibrahim alayhi salam, you see why Ibrahim alayhi salam made that dua. He says that, رَبَّ جَعَلِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. He says, oh Allah, make me a person that establishes the salah as well as my children. Now you see why he made that dua. Now, dhurriya doesn't mean just your children, but it means your children's children, your whole progeny. So that's why he made that dua, because he may be safe. His immediate children may be safe. But what about those who are going to come after he's dead? Right? So really only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can really protect us, right? And never try to depend on yourself more than you deserve. That's why Ibrahim alayhi salam himself, he said, وَجْنُبْنِي وَبَنِيَ أَنْ نَعْبُدَ الْأَصْنَامِ. He said, oh Allah, save me and my children from worshipping idols. When have you asked Allah to save you from worshipping idols? Perhaps some of us never. But Ibrahim alayhi salam, who was one of the greatest prophets, if he's asking Allah's protection from worshipping idols, what about us? Right? What about us? If there's anybody that will never worship idols, it's him. But at the same time, he's making dua for that. So never ever think that, cancer, that's never going to happen to me. No, ask Allah to protect you from that. We ask Allah to protect us from all of these diseases. I mean, somebody might be like, well, my grandfather is healthy, my mom's healthy, right? My grandparents from both sides are healthy. Nobody has cancer. It's not going to happen to me. You never know. You never know. Don't ever depend on things like that. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly can protect you. If Allah wants to test you with something, no matter what you think about it not happening, it can happen to you. It can happen to you, right? So especially shirk, that's the worst thing that could happen to you. Now, Nuh alayhi salam, how long did he stay among his people? How long did he give da'wah to them? 950 years. Imagine 950 years. People used to live very long back then. Very long. They used to live very long lives, yeah. Adam alayhi salam, yes, we've mentioned that, right? That Adam alayhi salam, he had 1,000 years, and then 40 years were taken away from him. Exactly, to Dawood alayhi salam. That's what we spoke about in our last session. So Nuh alayhi salam, generations later, he's living for a long time too, right? So Allah mentions this in Surah Al-Ankabut. Allah, he says, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلَ نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ فَلَبِثَ فِيهِمْ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا خَمْسِينَ عَامًا. Allah mentioned that we certainly sent Nuh to his people, and he stayed among them for 950 years. Allah mentioned that he stayed there for 1,000 years except 50 years, right? So he stayed there for 950 years. Imagine that. Given da'wah for such a long time, and only a handful of people accepted Islam. Only a handful of people actually turned away from the shirk and followed the way of Tawheed. Think about that, right? A small amount of people for 950 years. I mean, who can be given da'wah better than Nuh alayhi salam? But now today we have some people, mashallah, they give da'wah and thousands of people have accepted Islam by their hands alone. So, what's the lesson that you get from that? The lesson that you get from that is it's not about how many people accept the message through your hands. Right? You have Nuh alayhi salam, you have some prophets who don't have any followers. There's a long hadith in Bukhari, narrated by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us in this narration that how all of the nations were shown to him. How the people will be assembled on Yawm al-Qiyamah was shown to him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says that how رَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَمَعَهُ الرَّهْطِ. He said that I saw a prophet and he had a small group of people with him. And then he said, وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَمَعَهُ الرَّجُلُ وَالرَّجُلَانِ. And I saw a prophet, he had 1 or 2 people with him. Imagine that, some prophets, and you got to realize for the prophets, it's not just some side da'wah activity that they're doing, right? It's not like they're working a full-time job and on the weekends they give us, da'wah in the streets. No, this is their day and night job. This is their obligation. You see, it's not an obligation upon us like that, to go out and basically give our lives towards da'wah. That's not our job, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not, burden us with that responsibility, but the prophets, that's their mission, to call the people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah will ask them about what they've done. So now it's, you have this huge responsibility now. And then they spent their entire lives giving da'wah, and some of the prophets got 1 or 2 followers. Think about that. Now our prophets better than us? 100% they are. Right? There's no person living on earth today that is better than a prophet. Right? The prophets are the best of mankind. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them. But at the same time, just because you have more followers, more people accepting the message through your hands, does not make you any better. Right? Does not make you any better. Because those prophets, if that made someone better, then perhaps other people would be better than the prophets. And then the Prophet ﷺ then tells us, and this is the sad part, وَرَأَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ وَلَيْسَ مَعَهُ أَحَدٍ. And I saw a prophet who didn't have any followers. No followers. Think about that. Spent their whole life giving da'wah to their people, and nobody accepted the message. So if you think about this, if you have family members or friends who are not accepting Islam, don't feel bad about it. I mean, you feel bad that they're not accepting the message, but at the same time, guidance is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're given da'wah, don't give up because nobody is accepting your message, right? Sometimes people may say, I'm telling my friends about Islam and nobody's listening, so then they want to give up, right? If the prophets before you who had no followers didn't give up, right? Then that doesn't mean that you should give up as well, right? Or that means that you should not give up, okay? So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue. Right, we're going to continue with the story of Nuh. There's a lot of details. We're going to mention some more details, but in terms of the flood, what happens after the flood, we'll deal with that stuff in our next session, inshallah. So moving on, there are many different places where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about Nuh alayhi salam and how his people treated him. They treated him very badly. Right, they treated him very badly. In Surah Al-A'raf, Allah mentions, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلَ نُوحًا إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ, that we certainly sent Nuh to his people. فَقَالَ يَا قَوْمِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ مَا لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَٰهٍ غَيْرُهُ. Nuh alayhi salam said to his people that worship Allah alone, that you don't have any ilah, you have no God that is worshipped besides him. You shouldn't be worshipping anybody besides him. And then he says to them, إِنِّي أَخَافُ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابَ يَوْمٍ عَظِيمٍ. I fear for you the punishment of a painful day. Or sorry, he says that I fear for you the punishment of a great day. Right, of a great, I fear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to punish you. So turn back to Allah Azza wa Jalla and listen. The people, did they know about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Yes, they did. They knew about Allah, they knew about the forefathers, they knew about the teachings. They perhaps, definitely knew about Tawheed as well. Nuh alayhi salam is giving them da'wah, telling them to worship only one God. So, Nuh alayhi salam did not come to atheists. Nobody was atheist at that time. Nobody, period. Everybody knew that there was a God. Everybody knew who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was. Right? But their problem was shirk, was now giving qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, specific qualities, special qualities to other than him. That's what the problem was. Right? So Allah mentions that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says in Surah Al-A'raf, قَالَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْ قَوْمِهِ إِنَّا لَنَرَاكَ فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. They said to Nuh alayhi salam, the chiefs of the people that had status, right? The people that had a lot of money, a lot of wealth, a lot of power, they said to Nuh alayhi salam, they said that we see that you're in clear wrong. Right? You're clearly wrong, Nuh. Right? You're going against our traditions of worshiping these 5, statues of these 5 righteous men, right? Like you're going against our traditions. You're clearly wrong. Now, of course, just because somebody's criticizing you doesn't mean that they're right. All right? So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that how Nuh responded to them, saying to them, قَالَ يَا قَوْمِ. He said, oh my people, لَيْسَ بِي ضَلَالَةٌ. He said that I have no misguidance. I don't have any I don't have any misguidance with me. And then he says that وَلَكِنِّي رَسُولٌ مِّن رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. But I am a Rasul, I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds. So he's basically telling he's telling him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who created you, the one who you know about, I've been sent by him to guide you. And then he says أُبَلِّغُكُمْ رِسَالَاتِ رَبِّي. He says that I am conveying to you the messages of my Lord. وَأَنصَحُ لَكُمْ. And I'm giving you advice. I'm advising you. وَأَعْلَمُ مِنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And I know from Allah what you do not know. I know from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you do not know. So he's clearly establishing his status among them. He's saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen him as a prophet. And then he says, أَوَعَجَبْتُمْ أَنْ جَاءَكُمْ ذِكْرٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ عَلَى رَجُلٍ مِّنْكُمْ لِيُنذِرَكُمْ وَلِتَتَّقُوا وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. He says that are you amazed that a reminder comes to you from your Lord from someone who is among you? See, this was the problem, is that they said that, you're just a human being just like us. Right? They were thinking that a revelation should only, like this should only come down upon a prophet. Okay? So then Nuh alayhi salam says that, are you amazed that a reminder from your Lord, a dhikr from your Lord comes down to you from a person who is from you, a human being from you, and so that you may, so that he may warn you, so that this messenger may warn you, وَلِتَتَّقُوا, and so that you may beware and protect yourself, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ, and so that you may receive mercy. All of the prophets coming is a form of mercy. Imagine if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't send to us any prophets or messengers. We'd be lost. There'd be no way to actually find concrete guidance. So he says that me coming to as a messenger is, number one, is to warn you, so that you may protect yourself, right? And so that you may receive mercy. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, فَكَذَّبُوهُ, and then they denied him. They rejected him. فَأَنْجَيْنَاهُ وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ فِي الْفُلْكِ, and we saved him along with those who were with him upon the ark. And then Allah mentions, وَأَغْرَقْنَا الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. And then we drowned those who rejected our ayat, our signs. Right? We drowned those who rejected our signs. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا قَوْمًا عَمِينَ. They were blind people. Now when Allah Azza wa Jal says that how they were blind people, does that mean their eyes were blind? What does that mean? It means that their hearts were blind. Right? In Surah Al-Hajj, Allah He says, فَإِنَّهَا لَا تَعْمَى الْأَبْصَارَ وَلَكِنْ تَعْمَى الْقُلُوبُ الَّتِي فِي الصُّدُورِ. Allah says that the eyes do not become blind, but the hearts in the chests, those are the things that receive that blindness. Right? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls people, blind, and they're not actually blind, it means that their hearts are blind from the truth, that they can't even recognize the truth. Okay? And also in Surah Nuh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that how Nuh alayhi salam complained to Allah. Right? It's very important that whatever you're going through in life, you could talk to Allah Azza wa Jal. You could tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala how difficult your situation is. There's no problem in that. And that's what Nuh alayhi salam did. Allah mentioned that how he said, قَالَ رَبِّي إِنِّي دَعُوتُ قَوْمِي لَيْلًا وَنَهَارًا. He said, oh my Lord, I called out to my people night and day. Right? I called out to them night and day. And then he says, فَلَمْ يَزِدْهُمْ دُعَائِي إِلَّا فِرَارًا. And the only thing that they did when I called them was run away. Right? The more I called them, the more they ran away. That's it. That's all they did. Nobody accepted my message, except for a few. And then he says, وَإِنِّي كُلَّمَا دَعَوْتُهُمْ. And he says that every time I called them to Allah, لِتَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ, so that you may forgive them, جَعَلُوا أَصَابِعَهُمْ فِي آذَانِهِمْ. They took their fingers and they put it in their ears. They didn't even want to listen. Right? They would actually take their fingers and put it in their ears, and they didn't want to listen to Nuh alayhi salam. وَاسْتَغْشَوْا ثِيَابَهُمْ. And they would take their garments and they would put it over themselves, so they don't have to see him. Right? So they would cover their eyes, they would cover they would cover their ears. So if you think about how interesting it is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls them blind people in that verse that we just saw. And here in this verse, Nuh alayhi salam is complaining to Allah, saying that, oh Allah, they're putting their fingers in their ears and they're covering themselves with their garments. And then he says, وَأَصَرُّوا وَاسْتَكْبَرُوا اسْتِكْبَارًا. And they were being adamant and they were arrogant. Right? They were arrogant against Nuh alayhi salam and against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And then he says, ثُمَّ إِنِّي دَعَوْتُهُمْ جِهَارًا. And then I called them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I called them to the way of truth. He says that how I called them openly. Right? And then he says, ثُمَّ إِنِّي أَعْلَنْتُ لَهُمْ وَأَسْرَرْتُ لَهُمْ إِسْرَارًا. He said that how I announced to them, I proclaimed to them in the open, and I also spoke to them in secret. So Nuh alayhi salam exhausted all of the means of da'wah, whatever way he could have called them, whether it's openly or in private, loud or silent. Nuh alayhi salam, he used every method that he could to call them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then they just continued to reject him. So inshallah ta'ala, we're going to stop here. And we're going to continue in our next session. We're going to talk about the response of the people, some of the things that they actually did and said to him, some more of those things. And we'll talk about some of the arguments that took place between Nuh alayhi salam and his people. And we'll also we're going to talk about the flood, how it happened, and the aftermath of the flood. Okay, and where exactly is this ark? How did Nuh alayhi salam, how did he build it? And all of those interesting things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the story. Now, does anyone have any questions, any comments? Any question? Yeah.
Yeah, this is regarding the distinction between a Nabi and a Rasul, and the opinion that you mentioned, which is a Rasul is for a Nabi that came to a disbelieving people, right? And
or people that reject him, or people that reject his message that he's bringing to them.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to bring up a specific example of Musa alayhi salam.
Yeah.
Who's regarded as a Rasul because he was told to go to Fir'aun. Right?
Excellent.
But he's regarded as a Rasul, but from my understanding, Harun alayhi salam, who also went with him, was not regarded as a Rasul. He was regarded as a Nabi. So how would that fit here?
I mean, Allahu A'lam, I have not come across any specific speech of the scholars in terms of Harun, but there's a verse, I believe it's in Surah Al-Shu'ara, right? It's either in Surah Al-Shu'ara or Surah Taha. I think it's in Surah Al-Shu'ara, where they said when Musa and Harun, when they went to Fir'aun, Musa alayhi salam said, "Inna rasula rabbik." We are the two messengers of your Lord. So Allahu A'lam. Perhaps this could mean two things. Number one, it could mean that both of them were actually messengers, as is what is indicated in the verse. The second meaning of that is that it could, there's this concept in Arabic called taghlib, okay? And that is basically when you have two things and one has a dominant quality, right? You can refer to both of those things by that particular statement, right? So perhaps maybe Musa alayhi salam, he's meaning himself, but he's including Harun in that as well. Not to say that he's a Rasul, but just to kind of bring him along with him as well, right? Allah knows best. But like I said, I haven't come across anything specific about that. But Musa alayhi salam does use the dual form, Rasula Rabbik, the two messengers of your Lord, talking to Fir'aun. Allah knows best. Anyone else? Yeah.
Who was Prophet Nuh's enemy?
Prophet Nuh alayhi salam's enemy? Okay, so in terms of the names, Allahu A'lam, I've not come across any of the specific names of his enemies among his people. But we do know that his wife disbelieved in him. We know that his son disbelieved in him and his people in general. You could say Iblis was his enemy. Listen, you're gonna see in the movies that they make, the movies that they make, the cartoons, some of the books that they make. You're gonna find some of these names of characters. Allahu A'lam. I don't think there's anything like authentic related about any like specific people in his time, right? So like Allah Subhanahu wa Taala clearly doesn't mention any particular names of his enemies at that time. But in general, Iblis, Shaitan, and number two, his people that rejected him. Right, and he eventually made dua against them, as we're going to see in our next session. Yeah. Just wait for the mic so everybody can hear, inshallah.
When people make this movie about Noah and the Ark, or cartoon characters about them, is it like they're making fun of them?
I don't think their intention is to make fun of them. I think that a lot of these people that make these movies and these cartoons, they're trying to show the story of Nuh alayhi salam, of Noah. According to their narrative, according to their details, the Jews and the Christians, or even sometimes you find that there are some like Islamic cartoons or Islamic movies where they try to show Nuh alayhi salam. Like I said, it depends on the intention behind the person. Sometimes they may do it out of sometimes they may do it out of making fun of him. Sometimes they may do it to try to show people the story in like a visual format, right? So it's not always that they try to make fun of him. Anyone else? Any other comments, questions? Yes.
It's not related to the topic.
Okay, no problem. All questions are welcome.
It's from someone. Sometimes we watch movies and there's music involved. What do we do in this case? Is there punishment for this?
Okay, excellent. Right. So when it comes to music, now we have to understand that sins are on different levels. Okay, you have kaba'ir and then you have sagha'ir. You have major sins and then you have minor sins. Now to say that music, specifically, musical instruments, that was what we're talking about, musical instruments, playing them is a major sin, Allahu A'lam. I haven't come across any scholar who's mentioned that. Not to say that there aren't, but Allahu A'lam, I don't know, right? In terms of punishments, in terms of specific punishments for music, I don't think anything specific has been mentioned, right? Because there is some khilaf, there is some difference of opinion in terms of the validity of listening to music, like is it permissible or not. The vast majority of scholars, and ijma' has been mentioned for this by many scholars, that musical instruments are haram to use in general, except what has been made an exception. For example, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you had some young girls, they were playing with the deaf. Right, you had some women during that time they would play the deaf in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, right? That's the only exception that the scholars generally make. You have some like this, some like other opinions, but in terms of musical instruments in general, you find that ijma' has been consensus has been quoted by some scholars, even though there's not really consensus on the issue. You find like there's one hadith. I feel like the strongest text that we have, clearest text that we have. In terms of music being haram, is a hadith in Bukhari. There's a hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he says that لا يأتين أقوام, that there's going to come some people يستحلون الحرى والحرير. There's going to come some people that will consider zina, silk, والخمر والمعازف, and alcohol and musical instruments, they will consider these things halal. Now the question is, zina, silk, and khamr. The general rule when it comes to these things, generally speaking, is it's haram. Silk for men, not for women, right? So zina haram for everybody. Silk haram only for the men. Alcohol haram for everybody. Okay. Now the Prophet says that how there's gonna come some people who will make these things halal. In other words, what would be the benefit of the Prophet saying that if the default rule was not that these things were haram in the first place? So among these things that he mentioned, right, was also ma'azif, musical instruments. And there's other hadiths as well. There's a few other hadiths that have, their authenticity is disputed, that are very clear about music, right? Now there are some verses of the Quran that some scholars mention that may implicitly refer to music, right? But Allah knows best. I think personally, for me, this is the view that I lean towards, and I think that perhaps it's enough just to look at the evils of music itself. Also, it's not just because of the lyrics as well, but it's because of it's not just because of the instruments, but it's also because of the lyrics as well. Look at music today. Look at music, what they're singing about, what they're going on about. For the most part, it's about sex. What else is it about? Sex is a big part of it. Yeah, what else? Okay, good. Profanity, right? Disgusting language. What else? Huh? Okay, making deals with the devil. Perhaps that's not the majority. At least, besides the subliminal messages and things like that, right? But yeah. Yeah. Okay, before I answer that, let me finish with this one. Right. So what was I saying? Oh yeah, about the music, right? So listen, with this music business, right? Yeah. So you got sex, drugs. I think a big one is arrogance, right? Especially in rap music as well. I'm not trying to offend nobody here who's into rap music, whatever. But listen, it's a fact. It's about arrogance. It's about me, not this guy. Beep this dude. Beep that person. I'm gonna get your girl. I'm gonna get the money. It's about me. Forget everybody else, right? I mean, come on. Like if you just listen to the stuff back in the days, rap music especially, arrogance is huge in rap especially. So just look at the lyrics alone. I think that that's enough to kind of push someone away and to deem a lot of these songs and these, like a lot of these songs as haram. Now, in terms of the musical instruments, someone may say that why? What's the hikmah behind it? I don't see nothing wrong with music. I don't see nothing wrong with with music. If you find that the Prophet ﷺ clearly said that how there's gonna come some people that will make it halal, and that clearly indicates that it's generally haram. But then you want to say, but I don't find nothing haram about it. Right? In my intellect, I don't find anything that that is wrong about music. That's the same mindset of Iblis. That's the same mindset of Iblis. When Allah told him to bow down to Adam alayhi salam, he said, I don't see no reason why I have to do that. It doesn't make sense to me. Why do I have to bow down to him? I've been made from fire, he's been made from dirt. Why do I have to do that? It does not make sense to me. Oh Allah, you're telling me that this is the ruling. It doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not going to do it. That's exactly the mindset. People say, well, you know what? If they find a hadith that's very clear, let's say you look at this hadith, it's very clear to you. Wow, that does make sense. There's going to come some people that will make musical instruments halal. In other words, it's generally what? Haram. Common sense. It's not some type of far-fetched interpretation. The vast majority of scholars, they use this as one of the main proofs. Right? And like I said, consensus has been quoted about this particular issue. And those scholars who allow are just very few, very small amount of scholars, very few. Not to say that that means that their opinion is wrong, but just look at the evidence. So you have to understand that whether you understand the hikmah behind something, the first thing is that is if it's haram, it's haram. Then after that, we can try to find out what are some of the wisdoms behind that. Yes. The mic is coming.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment to what you were saying just now. Well, music itself, the number one thing that I can think of, it's somewhat of an intoxicant as well. And the influence behind music is, you can see it. Like the 90s rap to compare to music now, you could see the influence even in fashion. So the influence that kind of takes you away from the word of Allah always has a downfall to it.
Okay, excellent. It does take you away from, from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now listen, you see the problem with those, with those arguments, though, those logical, reasonings, is someone may say, well, what if it doesn't take me away from the, words of Allah? If I listen to this instrumental, it makes me closer to Allah. I think about the death. I think about death. I think about the akhirah, right? I know some people that tell me this, right? And listen, it's not far-fetched. Like sometimes you hear instrumentals. Oh, this is not giving me any bad lyrics. There's no lyrics. It's just, it's just the instruments. This is helping me calm myself, So, like I said, I think that hadith is very clear. Of course, we can derive some benefits, and that is true what you guys are saying, right? Yes?
I need some clarification. What was the first thing, or could you elaborate on shaitan pretending to be a boy, and then he learned to make the flute or play the flute or something like that?
Yeah, that story is not really 100%.
Is it authentic or
no? Like I said, that's from the Israeliyat. We were talking about one of those stories when Shaitan came to the valley and then he gave the music and like some of the children of Adam alayhi salam, right? That's what you're talking about? Yeah, that story, is not 100% as far as I know. It seems like it's from the Israeliyat, from the Jews and the Christian reports. If it's true, Allah knows best. Right now, listen, to address the question now, very quickly. If it's a movie, it's something. Listen, try to avoid it as much as possible. Unfortunately, in our time, it's almost impossible to avoid it totally. You go in the supermarket, it's gonna be music. You go into a restaurant, there's music. You go in the subway, somebody's playing music. You go to Manhattan, there's a half-naked dude playing the guitar. Yeah, wherever you go, there's gonna be some music somehow or another. You watch, the news. The rap song comes on, right? You trying to watch, an Islamic lecture on YouTube, trying to listen, subhanallah. I was playing Quran, and you know how YouTube is crazy. They have ads all over the place now, and what's crazy? They start putting the ads at the end of the video. Like why? So like the Quran is playing, alhamdulillah, and all of a sudden you hear boom, boom, boom. I'm like, yo, what happened to my Quran, man? And then it's an ad. You gotta skip it, right? And if you don't skip it, the song was gonna continue playing for like a minute. So it becomes almost impossible to really avoid, totally. Try your best to avoid it as much as you can. Sometimes if you're watching a documentary, you're not trying to listen to the music and the sound effects. You're trying to watch a documentary. You got to do an assignment, whatever the case is, and then the music is in the background. Try to avoid it as much as possible. And like when it comes to downloading it on your phone or something and clicking on the song, okay, that's clear. You can avoid that. But when it comes to whether it's a documentary, whatever the case is, try to avoid it as much as possible. Allah knows best. But like I said, I don't know of any specific punishment for it. That's why, Allahu a'lam, if it can even be considered from the kaba'ir, right, from the major sins. Yes, question. It'll be the same thing. Listen, whether you're playing it or whether you're listening to it, having it around, like all of the hadiths mentioned ma'azif, musical instruments. And, think about this. Back in the days, if you wanted to listen to music, somebody would have to play it for you. Nowadays, nobody needs to play. You record it and then you can have it. You want to play music 24/7, you could do so today. So through the technology, it's much more, more widespread. But it includes playing it and listening to it. Now, when the majority of the prophets were, in terms of what time period, Allah knows best. Allah knows best. I don't think we have anything that tells us that there's like a period of human history where like the majority of prophets were around that time. Is that what you mean? Yeah. Allah knows best. But Bani Israel, they had a lot of prophets. Right, Allah sent them prophet after prophet, prophet after prophet, prophet, after prophet. Yeah, 124,000. It's a lot of prophets. It's a lot of prophets. But like I said, we don't know of anything, that mentions those details. Any other questions? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
I have 2 questions. So the first one is concerning music, right? You could apply the same rule with if you could change it with your hands and do so, and then if you could change it with if you can't do it with your hands, then you could change it with your words. And then I think the most logical one is that if it's playing around you, if you're in public and you hear it, then you could hit it in your heart. And
Exactly.
That would be good.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like if you're for example in a restaurant. Sometimes you go to the halal restaurant and they're playing, you know, boom boom boom. They're playing the music, right? If you listen, yeah. Some people, you know, like some people may be like, you know, what is he trying to imitate, right? But anyhow, the beat or whatever it is, right? If you can go to the manager and be like, hey man, can you turn this music off? And they listen, alhamdulillah. I mean, listen, sometimes you'll be scared. You'll be scared. You know, you'll feel shy to ask him. But who cares, man? You're gonna pay them money to eat in that restaurant anyway, right? You know, get your money's worth, right? Ask the guy, be like, hey, can you turn off this music? And I'm telling you, I've done this in the past as well. Especially if you're the only one in the restaurant. What are you afraid of? Just tell the guy to turn off the music, and you'll be fine. Or at least, you know what? They'll turn it down. At least they'll turn it down. Or if there's a speaker near you and there's speakers elsewhere, they may turn it off from next to you, right? You never know, right? So just ask, what are you afraid of? What are you going to lose that you had before? Nothing, right? So, you know, try to stop it as much as you can from your own self, from your family. But like I said, if you're in a public place, there's nothing you can do about it, then you hit it in your heart, right? You try to avoid it, try not to pay attention to it. And you know, the crazy thing is, sometimes you're in public, and you're in a store, for example, and you're shopping, and a song comes on that you used to listen to back in the days. That's the worst. Cause then it goes in your head again, and then you walk out of the store, and it's still going in your mind, boom, 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 or whatever the tune is, right? Yeah, you know that's the crazy thing. And you know what? Sometimes you be hearing some of these songs so much that when you're just walking on the street, or you're at home, or something like you're about to go to sleep, and the song starts to play in your head. Like subhanallah, shaitan is so clever that that he gets it in your mind without you even wanting to listen to it. You know? Yeah, so any other questions?
Wait, I had a second.
Oh, you have another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
What about music that doesn't have instruments?
Okay, good. If there's no instruments involved, right? If it's like, you know, like you have these nice nasheeds. You have a lot of nasheeds now, alhamdulillah, but there's no music in it. It's just the voice. It's just, you know, I think at the end of the video, I think we're going to play it again so you guys can hear it. There's some like, you know, like vocals, you know, after, you know, like in the end. If you want to listen to something like that, no problem. As long as it doesn't have the musical instruments, right? It's a good nasheed, it has good meanings, you know, reminds you of Allah and things like that. You know, whether it's in English, Arabic, Urdu, whatever, you know, nasheeds you want to hear, right? But as long as there's none of the instruments, right? Yes. Huh? Allah knows best. Sometimes you hear these, you know, like beatboxing. Listen, you know, somebody played something the other day. Today's what, Monday, yesterday, right? Somebody played a video around me, and wallahi, I thought that was music. So when I told the person that, you know, the person was playing some music there, they said, no, that was beatboxing. So I'm like, subhanallah. You know, I mean, listen, some of these beatboxers are really good, man, like, doing all that stuff, right? And literally, it'll be sounding like music, right? It'll be sounding like, you know, like music. So Allahu A'lam. I think that's definitely, you know, there's definitely got to be some issues there, you know, especially if it's producing the same sound. Somebody want to find, you know, a loophole, right? Using the computer programs, right? The echo. I'm gonna go in this place and do some beatboxing, right? Be very careful. You know, check your intention. Yes.
I just wanted to add a one point to that. There's some scientific research done on how sounds affect the human body. Sounds that are not naturally dissipating have a different impact on human beings. For example, when you hear an alarm, non-naturally dissipating sounds will have an effect on you. Yeah. And when they did the research on music, the dopamine level, which is the hormone for releasing stress or, you know, just providing happiness, it's equivalent to some drugs.
Yeah.
Right. And the interesting thing is the daf, which is halal for us, it's one side opened. The sounds that dissipate from that are naturally dissipating.
Wow.
So it can't
That's
actually have impact the same way music has.
That's a very interesting point. And you know, a lot of people, listen, does music help with depression? Does music help with calming someone? Does music, you know, some forms of music, Beethoven, Mozart, whatever you want to listen to, right? Does that stuff like sometimes put you in a nice mood? Absolutely. But guess what does that as well? Drugs. You don't see nobody arguing that drugs is fine because it makes you feel good. I'm not saying that music is the same thing as drugs. I'm not. But I'm saying that the effect is very similar to what drugs can do. And so you have to realize that the happiness, the good feeling that you get after listening to the music, after hearing the beats, it's temporary. It's temporary. If you felt like garbage before listening to the music, you're probably not going to feel like garbage when listening to the music. But 10 minutes later, guess how you're going to feel? Like garbage again. Because the source of that feeling, the emptiness inside, whatever it is, you're not removing it, you're kind of putting a blanket over it. You're kind of sweeping it underneath the rug. You're not really fixing the problem. But if you listen to something like Quran, where you're contemplating the meanings, it's a direct message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you, and you're listening to a beautiful recitation, I'm telling you, that sometimes can change somebody's life. That really produces a positive change in someone's life. Lasting change, not just a temporary change. And that's what drugs, does as well. Like I said, I'm not saying they're the same thing, but I'm saying that there are certain parallels, right? There are certain qualities that they share. Drugs, you're gonna feel good for a little for a little while. Whether it's because of depression or whatever the case is, you'll feel good. But then later on, right after the high is over, how are you gonna feel? You're gonna feel like trash after that, right? You're gonna start to feel depressed, unfulfilled, and that's exactly what music can do as well. Like I said, perhaps not all the time, but those are some of the wisdoms, and Allah knows best. But the main thing is when we hear a hadith, when we hear a statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say what? Sami'na wa ata'na, not sami'na wa asayna. We hear and we obey, not we hear and we disobey. Bani Israel, they said sami'na wa asayna. Some of them said we have heard and we have disobeyed. Think about that. Allah mentions that in Surah An-Nisa. Think about how scary that is, right? So, very clear. Especially when it comes to the issue of music. Now, just because it's hard to avoid doesn't mean that it's fine to give in. No. If zina becomes difficult to avoid, doesn't mean that you're going to justify it now. No. So just like you wouldn't do that, there, don't do it here with music. So like I say, it's difficult. Alhamdulillah, the way that I stopped it, as a kid, was like in different stages. I didn't go, cold turkey. But I think that, I was able to memorize, way more Quran when I cut it out. I was able to, like all of the Quran that I memorized, the vast majority of it was after I cut it out. I'm telling you, alhamdulillah, I've never looked back. I don't feel bad about it. I don't feel unfulfilled. Once you have an alternative, and this is very important for your kids and for you as well, you need to have an alternative. You can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna, cut it cold turkey. If that's the Quran and halal nasheeds, try to find something that you like to listen to. A good halal nasheed that you like to listen to. Some sounds that's permissible to listen to. Very important. A lot of people don't understand this. You want to tell your kids, don't do this. But then what do you want them to do when they're not doing that? They're going to go straight back into it if you don't provide an alternative. Right? The same thing goes for foods and things like that. Right? If you want your kids to stay away from haram things, try to find some good halal things so that they wouldn't even need to go to the haram things in the first place. Right? And like I said, it's not impossible. There's many things out there. Right? Any last questions, comments? Yeah.
When we say yeah something or oh something, is it all shirk?
When you say what?
Like yeah and then like random names?
Oh,
or
okay.
Random names?
It depends. When you call upon someone, when you say ya, ya Zakareeya, ya Muhammad, ya this, ya that, right? It depends. It becomes shirk if two conditions are not fulfilled. The first condition is that you should not believe that the person is actually hearing you, right? If you believe that the person is not hearing you, that's the first condition for it to be permissible. In other words, if I call upon someone and I say, oh, my father, right? And I don't believe that my father can hear me if he's in another place, right? For example, let's say my father is in another town, for example, and I'm over here, and there's no phone, no connection at all. I know he cannot hear me, right? But if I believe he can hear me like that, then that would be considered shirk. Why? Because I'm giving one of the specific qualities of Allah to that person. Only Allah can hear you, can hear you from every direction like that, right? So if I say, I'll just give you the example of my father, oh dad, or oh mom. If you say it not believing that they can actually hear you, that's the first condition of it being fine. Second condition is that you're not seeking anything. And I think that if the first condition is fulfilled, you wouldn't be seeking anything anyway. But this is important to mention as well. You should not be asking for anything. So let me give you an example of where it's permissible. For example, let's say I'm on a trip and I remember my mom. And I say, oh, mom, if only you were here. But I don't mean calling upon my mom. I don't believe that she's going to hear me. Nor am I asking her for anything, but I'm just saying it as a memory. I'm just remembering my mom. Then there's nothing wrong with that. For example, Fatima radiallahu anha, when the Prophet passed away, there's a hadith in Bukhari, she says, Ya abata. She says, oh my father, oh my father. She said, oh my father. The Prophet after he passed away, right? So like I said, as long as those two conditions are fulfilled, then it's okay. We say, Assalamu alayka, Ya Rasulullah, there's nothing wrong with that. Peace be upon you, O Prophet, O Messenger. If someone wants to say that that's shirk, then how do you pray salah? You say, Assalamu alayka what? Ayyuhan Nabi, peace be upon you, O Prophet. So for somebody to say, oh, you can't say that, but you say in your salah 5 times a day, what are you talking about? Right? At least 5 times a day. But like I say, it depends on your intention. When you say, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan Nabi in the salah, do you intend that the Prophet ﷺ, like you're seeking something from him? Now there's a hadith for him specifically, the angels, they take your salam and they deliver it to him. And then he responds to you. So if you believe that he hears you through that route, okay, no problem, because he told you that that's what the angels do, right? But like I said, when it comes to, like I said, I think it's best to avoid this totally to, to protect yourself and your family and the people around you from any type of deviation. Because that's how it starts out. Like I said, shaitan is going to get you from doing something that's not shirk, and then later on, he's going to get you to now call upon that person and ask them. Shaitan is going to come and tell you, oh, it's fine to say, oh, dad. Right? So then all of a sudden, you're on the trip, perhaps my dad or my great-grandfather who passed away, I'm calling upon him. Maybe he can help me. Right? That's how shaitan gets you. So you want to be very careful. Like I said, with those two conditions fulfilled, it's okay. We do this all the time. We say, oh, man. Right? Some of the brothers, they say, oh, man. Now, which man are you calling upon? Right? Are you calling upon some man? Right? Sometimes we say, I think it's Winnie the Pooh. He said, oh, bother. Or is it, oh, brother? Whatever. People say, they say different things. As long as you're not intending that the person is hearing you and you're seeking something, it's okay. Like I said, but it's best to avoid.
Some people still believe that Rasulullah SAW is still alive. That's why they call them like your first khutbah here.
Yeah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says, إِنَّكَ مَيِّتٌ. Speaking to the Prophet, Allah says that you will die. You are dead. You will die. Very clear. The Sahaba, just think about this. Think about the implications of you saying that the Prophet is still alive. You're saying that the Sahaba buried him alive. Think about that. That's crazy. How could somebody say that? If he's alive, why would they put him in the ground? Why would they bathe him and everything if he's alive? Subhanallah, wouldn't that be disrespectful? Would that be disrespectful for them to do? To bury the Prophet alive? How could they do that? It's so silly if you think about that. For someone to believe that subhanallah, really in some places it's good to have a chair there. And when you go and try to sit down, in the chair, some uncle tells you, oh brother, you can't sit there. You're like, why? Nobody's there. He says how Rasulullah is there. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I don't know how people, come up with this stuff, man. It's really the stuff of Marvel comics, right? Right? They say how the Prophet is praying in our masjid. Listen, why would the Prophet be in some masjid in Brooklyn? Why not in Mecca or Medina? Why you gotta come to Brooklyn for? Why here? It's just so silly, man.
Yeah, for
right?
Hisbah.
The Prophet is dead, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was a human being. He doesn't live forever. But he's alive in the barzakh. He's alive in the in the ghaib sense. In the world of the unseen, he's alive in that sense. But to us, the Prophet passed away. My first khutbah that I gave here, the first khutbah that I gave here, this was in 2015, right? So the first khutbah I gave after the khutbah, actually during the khutbah, I kind of brushed over this point, right? How the Prophet is no longer with us, how he passed away. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. But there was one dude after the khutbah. I came, I'll give a salam to everybody. Assalamu alaikum, brother. How you guys doing? Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Everybody having a nice day, right? So this one guy comes up to me, and he has his hand in his jacket pocket like this, looking all crazy, right? So I'm trying to give the brother some good thoughts, right? Trying to think good of the brother. But then he comes up to me, and he's shaking. And then he says that how you said that the Prophet is dead, huh? So then I'm like, yeah, I think I said that, right? So then he's shaking, acting all weird and suspicious, suspect, right? So then he's like, how, he's like, he told me in a very weird way. He's like, yo, what did Umar ibn Khattab say to the one who says that the Prophet is dead? What did he say? Now what he's referring to is when the Prophet passed away, Umar, because of his emotion, how sad he was, he said that whoever says that Muhammad passed away, I'm going to cut their neck. That's what Umar, and he only said that because of how, the emotions that were running through him. And then Abu Bakr told him to sit down, right? Abu Bakr told him, no, you shouldn't be saying that, right? It was just through his love of the Prophet, he could really believe that he died. Now this guy, he comes up to me looking all suspect, telling me how, what did Umar say to the one who says that the Prophet is dead? I'm like, I don't know. He said, because I'm like, I don't know what this guy is up to, right? Look at all, suspicious. So he's like, I know what he said. He said, I'm gonna cut their neck. So at that point, I was like, Assalamu alaikum. I ran away, cause like, I'm not gonna be around there to chill with this person. Like, listen, I was just afraid that this person's gonna do something. He was looking real suspicious, right? Like, I was trying to give him some good thoughts, but I mean, somebody coming at, somebody coming up to you, like that. Look like they're about to pull something out and shank you or something, right? I'm not gonna stick around for that. So I just, quickly went away, and I went to the security guy. I'm like, listen, I think there's a dude over there. I don't know what he wants. Can you guys check, check this out? So then, I mean, I think he left after that, and Allah knows best. I never seen this guy after that. Oh yeah, he was like shaking my hand. He didn't really want to let go. So I was just something like really weird. Nobody really does that, huh? Oh, I don't know. Maybe he really liked me. I don't know. Allahu A'lam, right? All right. So we'll stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Prophets, messengers of every nation within tread. Allah said that He sent prophets, messengers of every nation within tread.